Crazy part is that most of us during our lives spend 95% of our life in our subconscious or in our programming, and only 5% of our time in our conscious mind. Hello everybody, on this episode of the Emotional Fitness Podcast, we're going to talk about your subconscious mind, how powerful it is, and how it's the weapon you're not using in your life to help you gain control of your emotions and the way you want to feel in your life. I'm really excited about this topic because I've been doing a ton of research over the past year through a range of authors and teachers, from Joe Dispenza to Jack Canfield to Joseph Murphy. They all have some wonderful research in this field, and I'm really excited to share this stuff with you. So first, before we dive into how to access your subconscious mind, how to make it work for you, we need to answer a few key questions. One of those first questions is, what is your subconscious mind? Well, your subconscious mind is all the programming that goes on in your body and in your life that you don't have to think about. I know it kind of ties into the name, we're not conscious of it. But if you think about it, it is things like digestion. It is things like breathing, growing skin, growing hair, healing. Anything that we do that we don't have to think about is your subconscious mind. Our conscious mind then, on the flip side, is our wishes and desires. It's what we use, it's where our focus goes. Our focus essentially is our conscious mind. And so that would be the big difference between the two, is all of our programming, and these programs can be from digestion to growth, like I said before, to automatic responses with people and situations. Whereas our conscious mind is us being present. The crazy part is that most of us during our lives spend 95% of our life in our subconscious or in our programming, and only 5% of our time in our conscious mind. So you can imagine what kind of lives you're living if everything we do is automatic and programmed from other things and not us. What kind of life would you be living? Makes you wonder. So what does it do? Well, as I mentioned before, your subconscious mind is in control of all of those things as mentioned before: your digestion, breathing, growth, any sort of chemical release, hormone release, movements. How I'm moving my hands right now, I don't have to think about it, I'm just doing it. When you're walking, when you're running, and you're consciously thinking about some other task, that's what it does, is it keeps you alive and alert. It's also responsible for emotional responses. So if something happens to you and your first knee-jerk reaction is to get angry, that's your subconscious mind. Or if your knee-jerk reaction is to be excited when your favorite team scores a touchdown, that is your subconscious mind. You'll do those things without thinking about it. So a good analogy or a good example there is, if you've ever bumped your knee or bumped your elbow, and normally you bump your elbow and it hurts and you're ow. But if you bump your elbow or your knee or stub your toe and you make that sound but you don't actually feel any pain, well, that's your subconscious mind saying, hey, here's a series of events that happened and here's the response that you should have. Another good example is when you normally would get angry at a certain situation and you can feel yourself starting to get angry, and then you take a step and go sit back and go, wait a minute, why am I getting angry over this little thing? Well, that's because that is an automatic response. Think of it as an auto reply. When something happens, you automatically do this. So the next question then is, how does programming work then? Because if we are living this life where 95% of it is pre-programmed, well, how does that even happen? Well, according to research, most of your habitual programming is done between the ages of 3 to 7 years old. So think about things like how you walk, how you talk, your vernacular, how you write. all those things, how you eat, all those things are set up from most likely watching your parents. And that is the next point of this, is that your programming is generally done by the 7 closest people in your life. You've heard the term monkey see, monkey do. Well, that's exactly what they were getting at, is that we see people do something and we eventually copy them. The more we do any specific habit, so especially when we're trying to create a new habit, the more we do those new habits, continuously, the conscious mind creates grooves into our unconscious patterns. And so there's just a few ways of how programming works. And most of the time, the programming happens without us even being aware. Another example of programming is through TV, hence why they call it programs. We can be programmed, or we can have our programs, our subconscious mind influenced through music, because we're listening to it constantly. If you're listening to about certain things, certain topics all the time, you will be influenced by it because it's repetitive. TV is another example. Music, people that you spend time with, as I mentioned before. So the things that you do on repeat that you're unaware of are typically the worst. And now that is a tough situation because you're unaware of them. So the next question then is, well, what can you do? This is a really wonderful question, and I've came up with 5 ways, or 5 things you can do to address this. And so the first thing to look at when addressing your subconscious mind, how to make it work for you, is look at something you want to change first. So if you are, let's say you want to get back into the gym and get work on your fitness and health, anytime you think about going to the gym, what type of response do you have? Are you having one that's negative or positive? Anytime you think of eating healthy, what type of response do you have? Is it negative or positive? If you associate a huge amount of pleasure with the new habit and repeat it over and over, eventually, especially the thought, will become ingrained in your subconscious mind. So that's the first one there, is through repetition. That is probably the most obvious one and the most utilized by most people. Problem is, I feel like it can have the least amount of weight. And so that's why I want to talk about it first. The next one of my absolute favorites, and this is what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, is an emotion and attaching a thought to it. So if you want to get in shape and have a new take on health, the first thing you do is start thinking about it and attach a positive emotion to it. You can do this while walking and talking, or not talking, but walking and going about your day. My favorite way, and Dr. Joe Dispenza talked about this as well, is during meditation, because during meditation, you're opening the gate, if you will, to your subconscious mind, and slowly, as with practice, you're slowly closing down your conscious mind. And so when you have those thoughts of any change you want to make and have a positive emotion attached to it, that will slowly get ingrained into your subconscious mind and become part of who you are, and who your subconscious mind will push you and put you on automatic response to become. So the second part there again is the thought plus an emotion. The thought or the goal, the outcome, with a positive emotion. The next thing to look at in your life, and this can be really challenging, but it can be also massively powerful, is the 7 closest people in your life, because we are all influenced by the 7 closest people in your life. So take a look at your life. Who do you spend time with, and do they have the things you want? Do they have the goals and the drive and the knowledge of the person you want to become? Because if they do, then great. You will start to rub off, and they will start to rub off on you. But if they're not, you need to make a change. I'll give you an example. Have you ever started to go into the gym or started to make a change or talk to your friends about saving money or going to get a new job and everybody you spend time works at the same job, how many of them actually support you in that and actually want to see you push through it? How many of them criticize and poke fun and demean you for trying or even thinking that thought? Because if that's the case, then those people I would recommend not having in your life if you want to make change. And that's going to make it very difficult, because if they don't believe you can do it and you spend all your time, all your free time with them, it'll be very difficult. You're working an uphill battle. But if you change and look at adding people to your circle and removing others who don't fit that standard, you'll become like them, and it'll become easier to do that. Again, not easy to do, but massively powerful. And this is something I've been doing in my life and slowly making changes and becoming the person that I want to be and adding people to my life that I want to mimic or learn from. The next step, or the next one, use or tool that you can use to address your subconscious mind is the last 5 minutes before you go to bed and the first 5 minutes in the morning. Jack Canfield talks about this, and it's really wonderful and an easy tool that can be quite powerful, because when you're falling asleep, your subconscious mind is opening up. That gate's opening up, as he talks about. And you're allowing your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, to communicate a bit there. So in that last 5 minutes before bed, thinking of that goal that you want, seeing it in your mind's eye of that goal or that thing, that change that you want to make. And first thing in the morning, when you get up, it's not going to your phone, it's not whatever, thinking of those things, that thing that you want, that change that you want, first thing in the morning, because then it becomes a habit and it becomes part of your programming. The last one here is probably the most powerful, but takes the most amount of effort. And this is why I saved it for last. Have you ever known anybody that anytime they wanted to make a change or started to make a change and they made a mistake or did something wrong, they came down on themselves so hard, telling themselves how stupid they were, or an idiot, or they can't do this? You ever notice that those people most of the time don't succeed? This is because their language, and your language invokes emotion, and emotion invokes action. And so if you change your language, it'll change your life. If you change your language, that'll create a different emotional response, which will then create a different set of actions for you. This one takes the most amount of effort, and to be honest, I put a note here saying that coaching is the best way to accomplish this, because most of the time we're not even aware of the things we're saying. Most of the time we're not aware of the subtleties, the digs, the jabs we throw at ourselves or at others that are negative and don't help us accomplish our goals or the things we want or the changes that we want in our life. This takes a huge amount of consciousness and repetition to address. But if you do, you will have massive changes in your life. Tony Robbins talks about this all the time. Change your language, change your life. That's how you change your destiny and the path that you're on. But I'm warning you, this takes time. This takes practice. This takes patience. And so this is why I had it at the last one. But if you do this, you will make some massive change in their life, which is exciting and wonderful and amazing to see. Not only has this worked in my life, but other people's lives that I help, which is so cool to see. A good analogy is a young athlete I was helping. And this athlete's language a lot of the time was negative and negative, and put himself down a lot. As we worked together, we started addressing his language. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, you could see that during watching film and watching move, he would move differently on the field, because his language before was that he couldn't do it and he was scared and wasn't able to. But as we started working through it, made some massive changes, and you could see how much different his body language was as he played his sport, which is so wonderful and powerful. So there's a clear example of that programming. Now it's not just here in his conscious mind, but actually programming, and it changed the way he moved and he played. So that is it for today. I'll give him a quick repeat of those 5 ways you can do it. So 1, just to recap before we wrap this up, repetition. Conscious repetition will create grooves in your subconscious mind. Thought and emotion. So creating a thought, a goal, an outcome that you want, and attaching it to a positive emotion that you want to feel from that. Number 3 is addressing the 7 closest people in your life. Look at who you spend the most time with. Can you turn down their volume if they're close family? Or can you replace some of these close friends, or look to add somebody that can be a better influence in your life? Number 4 is the last 5 minutes before you fall asleep and when you wake up in the morning. And then the last one, 5th one, is your language. You change your language, you change your life. So if you are looking to make some changes in 2025 and you are struggling, I encourage you to reach out to somebody. Any coach that you feel can help you in your pursuit of change. If you don't have anybody, or you want to talk about some changes in your life, feel free to reach out, because I would love to have a discussion with you about what's going on in your life and how I can help and how we can work together to make some big changes. So if you haven't yet, please subscribe, share it with a couple people that might need to hear this, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening.